Sometimes we complicate preparations more than necessary. You have all the necessary supplies and devices that make life easier, but at its core, preparation boils down to a few basic needs: food, water, and shelter. Today, I want to focus on food, specifically what is in your refrigerator and how to avoid spoilage or throwing it away when the power goes out. When it comes to food, we all tend to pay attention to long-lasting products that do not require refrigeration. And this is quite justified. However, this gives rise to the misconception that when the electricity goes out, we will have to throw away all the chilled food or possibly have a street barbecue and eat everything before it spoils. Although this may be true for some, for many it is actually easier than you might think to keep a small refrigerator and freezer running for days, weeks, and even months during a power outage. This means that while others will eat crackers and noodles, you can enjoy a juicy cheeseburger or steak with a cold drink. Not to mention the medications that need to be stored in the refrigerator, such as insulin or antibiotics, to prolong their shelf life. Thus, having a refrigerator in a disaster or emergency situation is not impossible. Moreover, what I am going to talk about today will also be useful in everyday life. This is not something that will sit on the shelf waiting for disaster. It will be relevant throughout the year, but especially critical in case of catastrophe or emergency. In this video, I want to discuss everything you will need to organize this process, including various options, your energy needs, and a little trick you can use if solar energy is unavailable to you. Before I move on to setting up the mini fridge and freezer, I want to discuss what you have probably heard in the prepper community. It's the idea of turning on your large refrigerator for a few hours a day to keep everything cold. Although this is indeed an option, I consider it a last resort. Yes, it will work, but it has its drawbacks. You can connect an inverter to your car and run an extension cord inside the house, keeping the car running for an hour or two during the day to maintain the temperature in the refrigerator. However, I don't like that your car will become a very important part of your preparation plan, as you never know when it will come in handy. If you damage the generator or drain the battery, you won't be able to use the car. Therefore, as I already said, this is the last resort I would resort to. You also have generators. I recently bought one and plan to review it in the near future, but this will also be. There is a possibility to install an inverter in the car, but unlike that, you don't have to worry about damaging the battery or generator. For me, this is a more preferable option, but I am still concerned that the temperature in the refrigerator will rise throughout the day. As soon as it exceeds 40 degrees Fahrenheit, it becomes a risk zone for products. In the freezer, items can partially thaw and then refreeze. In the short term, this is not critical, but if the power outage lasts for several days, it could become a problem. That's why I like the idea of having a freezer and a mini fridge that work around the clock and don't consume much energy while maintaining the necessary temperature. In case of disaster, or even a power outage for a day or two, you can transfer some food from the large refrigerator to the smaller one, which will run constantly, and you won't have to worry about it. Another advantage is that for the refrigerator to operate around the clock, you will need a large amount of power. Typically, a refrigerator consumes between 3 to 4 kilowatts of energy per day, which amounts to 3 or 4,000 watts. Thus, you will need about 400 amp hours a day for the main refrigerator to operate. Therefore, using a freezer and a mini fridge is much more efficient than the constant operation of a regular refrigerator. Now let's consider several options that may help in organizing such a system. Some of them are designed for emergencies, when you will be prepared in case of a power outage. I use a permanent option that I call my extra refrigerator and freezer for meat. In case of an emergency or power outage, it will already be working, and I just need to move some products. The mini fridge and freezer I bought at the store. The freezer cost about $170, has a capacity of 5 cubic feet, and consumes 218 kilowatt hours a year, which is about 600 watts a day. In my experiments, it consumed about 500 watts a day, unless you put in products that require cooling. Otherwise, it consumes a bit more. The mini fridge cost about $130 and has a volume of 2.5 cubic feet. It is not the biggest, but not the smallest either. This mini fridge consumes about 65 watts when the compressor is running, and about 350 watts a day. Thus, considering the freezer and mini fridge, I get about 850 watts a day. Keep in mind that this is just an example of my approach. You can choose a larger or smaller freezer, a medium or smaller refrigerator. They also exist. It all depends on your needs and energy production capabilities. I found the most accessible and urgent option here, a lithium iron phosphate battery, or one of the portable power stations with at least 100 amp hours of energy. These devices can be used to power your system for 24 hours. All you need to do is connect them to the network, and in case of a power outage, simply unplug and connect to an inverter or generator to use this energy to power a mini fridge and freezer. In most emergencies, this will be quite enough. Most of us, unless you live in California, have not been without electricity for more than a day or two, but anything can happen. If you want to restore your energy supply after 24 hours and the grid is down, you will have to do it either with solar panels or, as I mentioned earlier, by connecting an inverter to your car or using one of the generators to recharge the battery to full discharge. With the help of solar energy, a 100-watt solar panel can probably charge about 50 or 60% of a battery. Therefore, if you choose solar energy, you will need at least 200-watt solar panels, 100 amp-hour battery, and a charger. If you decide to charge the battery using a generator that can be powered by a car or a small generator, you will need an inverter with a power of 600 watts. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pure sine wave inverter, and it doesn't have to be expensive, as it is only needed for the refrigerator. You need to convert the DC from the battery to AC for the refrigerator. Thus, with one battery of 100 amp hours and a 600-watt inverter, you can power a mini fridge and a small refrigerator for 24 hours. The problem will start the next day when you need to recharge the battery. A slightly better option would be to purchase 200 amp-hour lithium iron phosphate batteries so that within 24 hours, using one of them, you could recharge the other with solar energy or a generator. Thus, when the first battery discharges to about 15%, you can swap them and use the new battery while charging the second one during the day, either with a generator or by taking it outside to charge with solar panels. Having a second battery will be useful, although they don't necessarily have to be connected like mine, but it will allow you to charge one battery throughout the day while using the other. With such a system, you can work indefinitely, as long as you have fuel reserves or enough solar energy to recharge the batteries. I believe the best option is to maintain a charge and use this device daily. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's great that my system is set up so I can use it every day. This is my extra freezer where I store excess food. In an emergency, it will work, and perhaps you've seen some of my videos on this topic. I have 2 lithium iron phosphate batteries and solar panels connected to the house. Right now, I have 3 solar panels with a power of 100 watts each. This is enough to keep the batteries charged and functioning around the clock. During the night, 2 batteries with a capacity of 100 amp hours discharge by 25 or 30%, and with 3 solar panels, I can replenish the charge by midday. This is enough energy. 2 solar panels will suffice if there is enough sunlight. But such a system ensures uninterrupted operation, and you don't need to delve into complex settings. You can simply use 2 batteries, a small charge controller that processes the current from solar panels, and an inverter to which you connect devices. In fact, it's quite simple. The main thing is to ensure the safety and protection of all connections. Overall, you will need about $1,000, maybe a little more. It really seems like a significant amount, but you don't have to do everything at once. You can start by buying a freezer, filling it with meat, and using it daily. Then you can buy a small refrigerator and assemble a system with a lithium iron phosphate battery. In the end, you will have a place to store food. And in an emergency, you won't have to worry about what to do with supplies of meat or milk for the children, cheese, and other important things. For me, this is really important, as cheese can be added to almost any dish, except perhaps ice cream. But even with ice cream, it might work. It is not an absolute necessity, but in the case of disaster or emergency, such a system will significantly improve the situation and allow for the preservation of the usual way of life. As I already mentioned, many of us have never been without electricity for more than a week, and most major disasters we think of are probably less likely than an accidental incident where someone crashes into a transformer at a traffic light and cuts off the power for a day or two. If you live in California, power outages probably happen 5 or 6 times a year, so such a system is almost necessary in California. In any case, having such a system will help you be prepared for everyday life as well as possible disasters or power outages. When the power goes out, you won't have to run to the neighbor's barbecue or throw away all the food. I would like to know your thoughts and advice on what you plan to do in a situation without electricity. How do you intend to keep the food cold? How do you plan to use the refrigerator? I know there are many different ways, and if you have your ideas, feel free to share them in the comments below this video. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to receive notifications about new releases. I plan to review the generator within a week or two and release videos about twice a week. That's all for today. If you have questions or comments, leave them below. Take care and prepare for possible difficulties. See you soon.